Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with the esteemed Dr. Eric Lopkin. We always talk about and discuss what we're going to review on the podcast, and it's really always right now beginning with a V, and that's the race for the vaccines. I guess there's several of them. And the explosion in the coronavirus. It's almost like parallel paths. What's going to happen first? Your read.
Well, the vaccines are definitely going to happen first because the United Kingdom approved the first vaccine this morning.
I did see that, yes.
So we've got the Pfizer vaccine has already been approved in the UK. People are going to start getting vaccinated later this week and the beginning of next week is the rollout. So that's fantastic news. The FDA has a meeting coming up. They expect that the Pfizer and one of the other vaccines, I can't remember which one, but two of the vaccines are expected to be approved around December 18th. Pfizer has already started shipping vaccines so that once the FDA approval comes through, they will be able to start vaccinating people against COVID within 24 hours.
Okay, now Pfizer didn't announce it till after the election. Was that just a coincidence or planned?
I think it was a coincidence. It takes a lot of work to get the statistics to the point that they're allowed to announce anything. And quite frankly, I don't think they put it off.
I actually do. I 99% agree with Dr. Eric Lopkin. This one I don't, because I think the drug companies hated Trump and couldn't wait to see a dupe like Biden get in.
No, I completely disagree. And again, having worked at Pfizer, I've got a very good idea of how they function. The drug companies are going to do much worse under a Biden administration, and they know it. Operation Warp Speed, which is what got these vaccines out the door as quickly as they did, was completely done by Trump. So, the statistics.
Okay, we'll agree. We'll agree to disagree. It happens, even in the best marriages. But here's what I think. I mean, the vaccine, it's going to be available in the UK very shortly, but it's going to be a longer rollout. Meanwhile, the pandemic seems to be exploding exponentially. How do the two meet?
Well, again, two vaccines are expected to be approved here in the U.S. approximately December 18th. They're talking about a 24-hour rollout. The CDC announced today that people in nursing homes and healthcare workers are going to be the first wave vaccinated. Mm-hmm. So you are going to see those people, both the folks in nursing homes and the healthcare workers, vaccinated by the end of the year.
That's absolutely stunning. It's amazing. I do believe if this came out in October, could have changed the election.
It absolutely
I'm not getting into
have.
The conspiracy theory.
No,
I'm just saying that if it did.
If they had been able to get the data out faster, and again, it's very difficult to get the data out quickly.
I'll accept your
If they could have gotten it out quicker, it probably would have changed the election.
Interesting. Speaking of changing the election, did you hear that the campaign advisor or head of the Trump campaign, I don't recall his name offhand, basically said on a show that he would be reelected in a landslide if he didn't get fired? Probably self-serving, but you never know with Trump.
That's probably
self-serving.
That's definitely self-serving. I don't know if that's true. The fact of the matter is there was so much fraud. And this wasn't something, let's face it, when I worked as a political consultant, I told candidates this all the time. Very few people ever listened. The Democrats did this correctly, was They went on the offensive from day one. So it was a 4-year campaign to get Trump out of office.
I would agree with that. I do think, and Dr. Lopkin, you're the one who said it. He's the one who's going to do it to himself. And I'm sorry to say, in the end, he did it to himself.
Yes, if he would have stopped tweeting, if he would have just focused on getting the job done, he had a strong enough record that he could have easily stood on his record, but he antagonized too many people.
I think it's actually, I agree with that, but I think just taking that a step further, I believe that it's, in my opinion, it's the tweets that didn't help him at all. 3 things, really. His coronavirus update started out, he was actually gaining in the polls. He was keeping it together. He looked presidential. It was all cool, and then it de-evolved into a craziness that he always does, like blaming this. So that worked way, way against him. His first debate performance was not good. And I think those 2 things really hurt him.
They definitely had a huge impact. The basic problem was his behavior. His message was right. And in fact, the numbers that just came out a few days ago, if you remember, he was talking about the fact that we can't make the treatment worse than the disease. And that's exactly what ended up happening. According to the most recent numbers, approximately 220,000 people have died from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
In the last month, 15 million Americans reported that they could not feed themselves.
I've heard that before. Yes, that's true.
So,
I agree with that 100%, but it was his delivery.
Yes.
I also think that him being deaf, dumb, and blind to the coronavirus didn't, even if you don't believe it, okay, just common sense. Wear the friggin' mask. Tell everyone to wear, just do it, as Nike would say.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what he was trying to do. He was trying to get people not to be afraid, which was an important thing to try. Unfortunately, he was the wrong person to do it. He delivered the message incredibly poorly.
Yes.
I mean, if Mike Pence had come out giving speeches that, we do not need to be afraid of the virus, we are combating it, and yes, he would have worn the mask, but let's face it, Mike Pence was actually so much more presidential than Donald Trump was.
And you know something, and that's Trump's problem in a nutshell, and that's amazing to me. You are, I've always said, a very, very bright individual. But the problem is, Dr. Lopkin, he didn't have anyone in his cabinet that could have had a strategy like you just articulated. I think that was, in the end, that was Trump's biggest problem. He had B- because he got rid of everyone. He didn't get along with people. It was all about him. And in the end, he was left with B- players that couldn't design a coherent strategy. We'll end on that. Do you agree or not?
I do agree to a certain extent, but I think a bigger problem, and this is a big problem going forward, is that the American people seem to have been trained to put the image of a president above the accomplishments. Barack Obama is still considered an excellent president because he had the image of an excellent president.
Oh, no, he could sell you ice in the winter, yeah.
Right. But when you look at his policies, he was a disaster.
I would agree 1,000%. But I'm still saying that if he had an adult in the room, like a Jim Baker, yes, back long time ago with Reagan and Bush, it would have been a much better situation. He, that first debate, he had Christie helping him. But why don't you get a real debate coach instead of some lackey?
Yeah, he needed somebody to rein him in, and he could not handle it. And, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in one case. He was under attack from the moment he became the candidate.
No question about it.
And that kind of stress, on top of the usual stress. Remember, take a look at the photographs of any president the day they're elected and the day they leave office. Whether it's 4 or 8 years, they look 16 years older. This is
I
a
agree.
very
He was
stressful job.
He was
He
under
had this
siege.
on top of it, and unfortunately, he did not handle it well.
I agree. I doubt very few people could do that. We'll close on that. And I do think I agree with you 1,000%. He was on 24/7 under siege by the media and by the Democrats. Dr. Lopkin,
Absolutely.
excellent. And we'll be live on Friday.
Yes, you can catch us live at blogtalkradio.com/Carnivore Radio. We'll give you the phone number if you want to be part of the conversation.
Thank
See
you,
you
Dr.
then.
Lopkin. Thank our listeners. Take care.
You've been listening to Carnivore Bites, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch us every week on carnivoreradio.com, exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast Store, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you find podcasts.